Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The substitute who never left. The classroom reeked of ammonia and old paper. The walls buzzed with dim yellow light, flickering as if they were breathing. Jessa couldn't move. Her arms were strapped to her desk. Not tied. Stapled. Industrial. Staples pierced through her sleeves and deep into the wood. Her wrists throbbed, the fabric soaked in blood. But the real horror wasn't her pain. It was him. Mr. Greaves stood by the whiteboard, writing the same sentence over and over in thick black marker. Class doesn't end until the lesson is learned. His back was straight, movements mechanical, head twitching every few seconds like a puppet too tightly wound. He hadn't turned around in 30 minutes. Jessa had counted each stroke of the marker, her breath catching every time it squealed. Across the board, there were others in the room, 4 other students, not breathing, not moving, not blinking. "Ellie?" Jessa whispered, her voice a scratchy thread. "Ellie, are you okay?" No answer. Ellie sat in the front row, mouth slightly open. Her eyes rolled back into her head like a broken doll. Dried blood trickled from her nose. Her hand was still gripping her pencil, so tightly the wood had splintered. Mr. Greaves stopped writing. Jessa froze. The marker clattered to the floor. He turned slowly, his face finally revealed. There was no skin. His face looked like rotted meat, stripped of all human softness. The mouth was stretched into a smile that didn't match his dead, glassy eyes. "You're not paying attention, Jessa." His voice was polite, calm, the kind of voice a teacher uses when warning a student before detention. "Please," she whispered, "please let me go." He started walking toward her, each step a slow tap on the linoleum. She struggled, her blood slicked, wrists screaming as she tried to tear free, but the staples were deep. She felt her skin begin to rip. "You were the worst in class," he said, always whispering, always laughing when someone cried, always so sure no one was watching. He was at her desk now, close enough for her to smell the rot in his breath. He knelt beside her, face inches away. "I never forgot you," she gasped. "You were never my teacher." "No," he said, "but I should have been." Suddenly, he slammed both hands on her desk, and the room went black. Jessa awoke. On the floor, no desk, no students, no teacher, just darkness and chalk dust. A bell rang in the distance, long, low, and distorted. She stood up, wobbling, her wrists now free but scarred. The pain was still there. The classroom was empty now, abandoned. The walls were cracked, appealing with moisture. The ceiling fan spun lazily overhead, even though the switch was off. The whiteboard was clean, except for one phrase written in red. "Next time, don't laugh." Her breath caught. That line. She had laughed. It was a memory buried deep, from middle school. One substitute had cried in front of the class after a panic attack, and she had snickered behind her book, not knowing anyone saw. But this couldn't be about that. It had been years ago. And that teacher, what was his name? She pulled the door open and froze. The hallway was filled with lockers, but each one had a name tag, not regular names, student names. And one by one, they began opening and slamming shut on their own. Loud, violent, Jessa ran. She sprinted down the hall, turning corner after corner, but each hallway looked the same. No windows, no exit signs, just more names on lockers. Names. She recognized. Names of people from her past who had died. She stopped when she saw her own. Locker number 327. Jessa Vernon. The lock clicked open by itself. Slowly the metal door creaked wide. Inside was a rolled-up yearbook page and something dripping. She reached in, shaking. Her fingers brushed cold plastic. A lanyard, a teacher's ID badge. It read, Greaves, Roger, substitute, 7th grade. Deceased, April 2008. She dropped it. The locker slammed shut. Catching a piece of her hair in the door, she screamed. When she finally escaped the hallway, she stumbled into another room. Not a classroom, a storage closet. She gasped when she saw what was inside. Dozens of desks stacked on top of each other, and on each desk the name of a missing student from the school district, burned into the wood. Their notebooks sat beside them. Their final homework assignments covered in dried blood. A projector flickered on by itself, casting an image on the back wall. Surveillance footage. It showed her, tied to the desk, and behind her, Mr. Greaves standing silently, not moving, not blinking, for 7 hours straight. The timestamp confirmed it. She hadn't dreamed it. It was real. The projector snapped off. Suddenly a phone rang. It was on a desk in the corner, dusty, an old rotary phone with no cord. She hesitated, then picked it up. A voice whispered through the static, "Tell the truth, or stay after class. Forever." Click. She dropped the receiver. It shattered. Footsteps began behind her, slow, heavy. She turned around. The projector flashed back on. This time it was showing live footage of her in this very room, and behind her on the screen, a tall, skinless man with no eyes. He raised one finger and whispered, "Lesson 1 isn't over." The lights blew out, and the closet door locked itself shut. Detention with the dead. The pitch-black room was ice-cold. Jessa's breath came out in clouds, though there was no wind, no draft, only darkness. The closet door rattled once, like it was testing her, then fell still. She backed into the corner, heart hammering so loud it hurt. She was still holding the broken phone receiver, gripping it like a weapon, but it felt useless. The kind of thing you carry to fool yourself into thinking you're not helpless. Lesson 1 isn't over. That voice still echoed in her head. Mr. Greaves. But how? She had barely remembered the name. Just a substitute, a footnote from middle school. Dead for years. Why now? Why her? A scraping sound interrupted her thoughts. Metal on concrete. Slow, deliberate. Something was moving in the darkness with her. She crouched down and crawled toward the only bit of faint light, a sliver spilling through the bottom of the closet. Door. Her fingers brushed something cold. A shoe. Her breath caught, not hers. She slowly reached up, hand trembling, and pressed it to the side. It was a leg, stiff, cold, and when she traced upward, she felt fabric. Rough, old fabric, like a uniform. Jessa yanked her hand back, then the whisper came. We all laughed. Just once. She scrambled toward the door and pounded against it. "Help! Let me out! Please, somebody!" Her voice cracked, but she kept screaming. The overhead bulb suddenly blinked on. For 1 second, just one, the room was lit. There were bodies in the storage closet. At least 10. All sitting upright, heads tilted down like sleeping students. Each was wearing an old school uniform. Each had a bloody report card stapled to their chest, and one was moving. The one nearest to her lifted its head. Slowly, its mouth was torn open, like someone had tried to force a scream wide enough to split the jaw, and it whispered, "It's your turn now, Jessa." The light blew out again. Jessa didn't know how long she was in there. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. But at some point the door creaked open. No one was there, just the hallway again, this time darker, more decayed, like something had aged 100 years since she last saw it. The lockers were rusted. The paint on the walls bubbled and peeled like it was scorched. Old bulletin boards hung at crooked angles, their messages unreadable. Jessa stepped into the hall. She didn't want to. But staying in the closet with the whispering corpses wasn't an option. Something had changed. She could feel it. A shift in the air, like the building was alive now, breathing, watching. Then she saw it. Down the corridor, a flickering classroom light. Room 2B, her 7th grade homeroom. She didn't remember walking there, but somehow she was at the door. Her hand moved without thinking. She opened it. Inside, the room looked exactly as it had back then. Posters on the walls. Work hard. Be kind. Bullying is a choice. Desks lined in perfect rows. And at the front, Mr. Greaves, alive, smiling. "Take your seat, Jessa." She stood frozen. I said, "Take your seat." Every muscle in her body obeyed. She sat in the third row, center seat, her old spot. The desk felt sticky, like sap or blood had dried under the surface. She didn't want to look too closely. Greaves picked up a clipboard. "Today's lesson, guilt." He smiled, the kind of smile that held no warmth, only rot. He began pacing. One by one, our classmates died. Each time, no one asked questions, no one cared. You all laughed. You said it was just a substitute, a nobody, just someone passing through. He stopped and pointed at Jessa. But I remember, the classroom door burst open. A wind howled, in carrying with it paper dust, the smell of mold, and a student, Ellie, her friend, or ex-friend maybe, from years ago. Except Ellie looked dead, her eyes were missing, her skin pale. But she walked upright, calmly, taking the seat next to Jessa. Another wind, another door slam, another body, Jake Morton, then Sean Park, then Marcy. Fen, all students Jessa had known. All of them had died under strange circumstances, suicides, overdoses, accidents. But now they were here one by one, filling the room. The last to enter was Harper, the girl who had gone missing in their freshman year. She had always sat behind Jessa. Now she stood there grinning, skin pale as wax, and whispered, "You knew, you saw the signs, but you laughed with them instead." Jessa shook her head, trembling. "No, I didn't." Mr. Greaves slapped the chalkboard with a cracked ruler. "Wrong!" He scribbled something in jagged handwriting. "Lesson 2. Accountability. Tell the class what you did, Jessa." She couldn't speak. Her throat burned. Her mind was blank. He stepped closer. "Tell them about the messages Harper left, the drawings, the notes she passed you. Tell them how you told her to get over it, how you said she was being dramatic." Jessa sobbed. "I was just a kid. I didn't understand." Greaves leaned down, face inches from hers. "But you do now." He grabbed her wrist and dragged her to the front of the room. The floor under her feet changed. It became soft, spongy, and when she looked down she saw faces under the tiles, dozens, pressed up against the surface, screaming silently. They were all former students. He forced her to look in the classroom mirror, cracked and foggy. In the reflection, she wasn't Jessa anymore. She was one of them. Her face pale, mouth stretched, eyes missing. She stumbled back. No, this isn't real." He raised the ruler high, and the moment it came down, she woke up in a nurse's office. Fluorescent lights, white sheets, the smell of antiseptic. Kind-faced woman looked down at her. "You passed out in the hall, honey. You're okay now. Someone found you in one of the old wings. You must have hit your head." Jessa blinked. What day is it?" "Wednesday," the nurse smiled. "You're lucky. That part of the school's been closed for years." Jessa sat up slowly. The closet, Mr. Greaves, the classroom." The nurse's smile faltered. "Who did you say?" "Mr. Greaves, Roger Greaves. He was here." The nurse stood, walked to a filing cabinet, opened a drawer, pulled something out and handed it to her. An old photo, black and white. "Is this him?" Jessa stared at the image. It was him, but the caption below read, "Roger Greaves, substituted briefly in 2007, accused of inappropriate behavior by several students. Disappeared before termination. Body never found." She looked up, heart pounding. "Where did you get this?" The nurse didn't answer. She wasn't standing there anymore. She was gone. The office was empty, completely empty. Jessa stood up and opened the door. The hallway beyond was not the nurse's wing. It was room 2B again. The hallway had looped. The sound of a chalkboard being scratched echoed in the distance, and behind her, the mirror on the wall fogged up. A message appeared. "In the condensation, 1 lesson down, 4 more to go. The teacher's pet." The moment Jessa stepped through the door again, everything shifted. No longer was she in a school hallway. The tiles turned to black and white checkerboard, stretching endlessly like a chessboard into darkness. The ceiling vanished. The sky above was thick with swirling clouds and blood-red lightning, and in the distance, a bell rang. Not a regular school bell. This one was sharp, metallic, alive. It didn't signal the start of class. It was a warning. Jessa's breath came in gasps. She looked behind her. The door she had entered through was gone. Just endless, suffocating space, and the checkerboard stretching beneath her. Footsteps echoed across the distance. But they weren't hers. Someone was coming. She turned to run, but as she took her first step, the tiles beneath her feet cracked and screamed. Human faces pushed up beneath the glassy surface. Some were moaning in agony. Others whispered her. A name. Jessa. You let us die. She backed up slowly, but the faces followed. The further she walked, the more tiles cracked and screamed until the whole world beneath her feet was a chorus of the dead. Then, up ahead, a door appeared, just hanging in space. Familiar, the library, or at least the version of it from her old high school, the one they shut down after the fire. She ran toward it, hoping it was real, hoping it led somewhere less impossible. The moment she opened the door, the checkerboard floor shattered beneath her like glass. She fell, not down, inward. She landed on carpet, old, worn, and smelling of dust. The library was dimly lit by hanging green lamps, but it wasn't abandoned. It looked used. Books stacked everywhere, papers fluttering on their own. Whispering. She stood up shakily. The moment she did, a soft voice called from one of the aisles. "Back again, are you?" It was a woman. Her voice was elegant, patient, almost motherly. Jessa turned and saw her. She was sitting at the circulation desk. Neat, brown hair pulled into a tight bun, horn-rimmed glasses, pale eyes like frosted glass. She wore an old-fashioned cardigan and skirt that didn't match any decade Jessa could name. She looked like every bookish librarian stereotype rolled into one, except her hands. They were too long, too thin. Her fingers tapped the desk like they had their own rhythm, like they were thinking. "Who are you?" Jessa asked. The woman smiled politely. "Mrs. Lyle, head of academic retention." "Academic what?" "You're here because you failed to learn your lesson." She stood and began walking toward her. "You had your first chance. Guilt, but you refused to face it." Jessa stepped back. "No, I did. I saw what I did. I saw what happened to Harper." Mrs. Lyle's smile faded slightly. "Seeing and accepting are not the same." She stopped at a shelf and tapped a book. It floated off, opening on its own. Pages flipped in a blur. "I've reviewed your record. Not just Harper. There were others. Smaller sins. Forgotten sins." She pulled a file out from beneath the desk, a thick one, and tossed it at Jessa's feet. It opened with a thud. Inside were pages covered in handwriting. Her handwriting, old notes she'd passed in class. One stood out. "Mrs. Baines smells like cat pee. Probably drinks wine for breakfast." Another, "Taylor's stutter is so annoying. Can we glue her mouth shut?" Jessa's eyes widened. I was just a kid. Those were jokes." Mrs. Lyle's face hardened. "You've mistaken cruelty for humor your whole life. You bullied without bruises. You taught others how to laugh at pain. You were a teacher's pet." Jessa flinched. "What?" The librarian's voice turned cold. "You behaved. You smiled. You stayed out of trouble. But every teacher you praised ended up ruined. Every classmate you mocked eventually broke." She stepped closer. "And now, your lesson is ready." The lamps overhead dimmed to blood red. The shelves around Jessa began creaking and groaning, bending unnaturally. One by one, the books began to open, not just open, but scream. From their pages came shadows, long, tall figures wrapped in school uniforms. They had no faces, just chalkboard slates where their heads should be. Each had words scratched into them. Dumb, ugly, weird, creepy, too fat, teacher's pet. Dozens of these students began marching down the aisles toward her. Jessa turned to run, but the moment she did, the librarian pointed, and the floor fell away. Again, this time she didn't land. She stood in the middle of an empty classroom. The lights were flickering. The air tasted like copper, and on the blackboard were the words, Lesson 3, Consequences. Behind her, the sound of someone sobbing. She turned. It was a girl, slumped over a desk, face hidden behind long, dark hair, her shoulders shaking. "Ah, you okay?" Jessa asked softly, stepping closer. The girl looked up. It was Taylor. Her lips were sewn shut, her eyes were pleading, and in her hands was a note, crumpled and torn, that read, "They said I wasn't normal, that I didn't deserve to speak." Jessa staggered back. Taylor stood up and began walking toward her. Not angry, not violent, just crying, broken. But every step Taylor took, more students began appearing around her, shadows from the past, each carrying a note, a scar, a wound Jessa had forgotten she'd caused. It wasn't about what she'd done, it was about what she didn't do, what she allowed, who she laughed with, instead of standing up. They surrounded her, their voices overlapping. In whispers, "You watched. You laughed. You left us alone. You were worse than them." Then everything fell silent. Mrs. Lyle's voice returned, soft as ever. "Do you feel sorry, Jessa?" Jessa was crying now. Yes, I do. I swear I do." "Do you regret it?" "I do. I didn't know it would matter so much. I didn't think it would haunt anyone." Mrs. Lyle's silhouette emerged from the shadows. "Oh, but it does haunt." She raised one of her long skeletal hands and touched Jessa's forehead. Suddenly, Jessa felt like she was being pulled inside out, her thoughts unraveling like paper, her memories shredded and rewound. She saw Taylor crying in the bathroom stall. She saw Harper with her torn notebook. She saw a dozen classmates, each walking away from her, some never returning, and she heard a final whisper, "Every cruelty lives forever in the classroom where it was born." Jessa woke up in her own bed. Sunlight was pouring in. Her phone buzzed, a text from Harper's number. "You passed. For now." Her mouth went dry. She got up and walked to the mirror. For a second, her face looked normal. Then, just for a flash, the face staring back had chalkboard skin and the word pet scratched across it. She blinked. Gone. But on her bedroom wall, written in red marker, or was it blood, was one final note. 3 lessons down, 2 more to go. Study harder or stay forever. The substitute. The morning after the mirror incident, Jessa tried to tell herself it was a dream, a hallucination. Sleep paralysis, flashbacks, guilt manifesting into vivid nightmares. She even Googled visual trauma experiences and read 5 medical articles just to ground herself. But none of them explained the text from Harper's number, or the words still scrawled across her wall, faint but visible. 3 lessons down, 2 more to go. She didn't remember picking up her phone that day. But somehow, around 3 p.m., she found herself standing in front of her old middle school. It had been closed for years, overgrown, locked up. Except today, the gates were wide open, and the school sign had been freshly painted, just 2 words glowing. Crimson, class continues. The hallways inside were darker than she remembered, flickering lights, lockers dented as if something had slammed against them over and over. Water dripped from the ceiling. Jessa's footsteps echoed unnaturally, loud, hollow, like she was walking through a metal drum. At the far end of the hall, a classroom door creaked open. A figure stepped out. Not a student. Not Mrs. Lyle. A man, too, tall, lean, pale like paper, dressed in a faded beige suit from the 70s. His shoes were clean, almost too clean, and he held a leather briefcase with rusted clasps. He looked unfinished, like his body had been drawn in pencil and never colored in. He smiled wide, revealing a row of small, sharp teeth. "Ah, you must be the returning student." Welcome. I'm Mr. Grin. Jessa blinked. Mr. What? Grin. Substitute for Mrs. Lyle today. He offered a bony hand. But don't worry, I've read your file, I know everything. She didn't shake his hand. He chuckled and nodded, as if expecting her hesitation. Let's begin. He turned and walked into the classroom. She followed, against every screaming instinct in her chest. Inside, the classroom was filled with mannequins, dozens of them, each sitting stiffly in desks, dressed in old-school uniforms, some missing arms, others with cracked faces or melted features. But all of them were watching her, their heads turned in unison as she stepped through the door. "Take your seat," Mr. Grin said cheerfully, motioning to the desk at the front. The moment she sat down, the door slammed shut behind her. Lesson 4. Reflection. The chalkboard spelled it out in bone-white script. Jessa's breath hitched. Mr. Grin set down his briefcase on the desk and opened it with a creak. Inside were 5 items. A hand mirror, cracked straight down the middle, a photo of her and her favorite teacher, Mr. Caswell, a pair of bloodied ballet shoes, a school report card, a small leather-bound book with no title. He picked up the photo. "Let's begin with memory," he said. Jessa stiffened. That's Mr. Caswell, my drama teacher." "Indeed. You adored him. Everyone did. He made you feel special, seen, encouraged your writing, believed in you." Mr. Grin placed the photo on the desk in front of her. "But tell me, did you believe in him?" Jessa hesitated. "What do you mean?" He smiled wider. "I mean, when the rumors started, when the first girl came forward, trembling, what did you do?" She froze, because she remembered. She had laughed. She had said, "Not Caswell. No way. He's the cool teacher. They're making it up." She didn't believe it until the third girl. By then it was too late. Jessa stared at the photo. "I didn't know," she whispered. "No," Mr. Grin said gently. "You didn't want to know." He picked up the ballet shoes next. "You remember?" These she did. They belonged to Leah Bishop, a quiet dancer from their class. After Caswell was suspended, Leah never returned to school. Word was, her parents moved her out of town, but Jessa had always suspected something worse. She'd seen the cuts on Leah's arms once in the locker room. She'd said nothing. Mr. Grin dropped the shoes on the desk with a heavy thud. "Reflection," he said, tapping the board. "It's not just about what you did, it's about what you let others suffer through." He picked up the hand mirror. "Take a look." She did. At first, it was just her face, pale, sweating, shaking. Then the cracks spread. Her eyes turned black, her smile twisted, and not hers anymore, and in the reflection behind her, the mannequins had moved. They weren't mannequins anymore. They were students. One of them stood up. Leah, wearing the bloodied ballet shoes, her head hung low, hair tangled and dripping wet, like she had been pulled out of a river. She raised her hand slowly and pointed at Jessa. "You said nothing," she whispered. Her voice was waterlogged. "You watched, you wrote stories, but never ours." The classroom lights exploded one by one. Darkness swallowed them. Jessa's chest heaved. "Stop!" she screamed. "I was just a kid." But the voices came anyway, all around her. "So were we. We needed you. You were safe. We weren't." Mr. Grin's silhouette returned, illuminated by the green glow of the chalkboard. There is no excuse for silence when others are screaming. He tossed the final item, the leather book, onto her lap. She opened it. Inside, instead of pages, there were mirrors, each showing a memory, each one of her choosing to stay silent, laughing along, ignoring the signs, distrusting the girls, protecting the wrong people. One final message floated up from the book, glowing red. You don't need to commit evil to carry it. Suddenly, the classroom began shaking violently. The floor splintered. The mannequins cracked open, revealing twisted, shadowy versions of her classmates, each with blank white eyes. Mr. Grin clapped his hands together. Class dismissed. A trapdoor opened beneath Jessa's feet. She fell again, this time into absolute silence. When she woke up, she was in her car, parked outside her apartment. Her phone was in her lap, a new message. From unknown, one final lesson. Come alone, or stay forever. Attached was a location. The first school she ever attended, the one she hadn't thought of in years, the one where her nightmares first began, and written on her windshield, drawn in the morning dew. Lesson 5. The first lie. The first lie. Jessa stared at the school through the windshield. It looked smaller now. Weeds clawed up the brick walls. Half the windows were boarded up. The bell tower leaned slightly, like it was trying to collapse in on itself, but hadn't found the strength. This was where it started. Her first memory of school. Her first friend. Her first betrayal. The playground where she told her first real lie. The kind that buried someone else. The message on her windshield was gone now, but she didn't need reminding. She knew why she was here. Lesson 5. The first lie. And she was alone. She stepped through the front doors, their metal frames screaming as they opened. No power, no lights, just the smell, like mildew, old wood, and something faintly metallic beneath it. Blood, maybe. Down the main hallway she saw it, a single classroom with its door wide open, candlelight flickering inside. As she stepped closer, she noticed the wall beside the door was covered in childlike drawings, hundreds of them. All crayon, all frantic, stick figures falling into pits, kids screaming inside lockers, teachers with hollow eyes, red everywhere. At the center of it all, one drawing bigger than the rest. It showed a little girl standing alone, while a figure behind her pointed and laughed. The words above it, "She said I did it." Jessa's hands trembled. She remembered now. The girl's name, Tamrin. The memory hit hard, like a broken mirror shoved into her chest. Tamrin was her best friend in first grade. Quiet, always drawing, always picked on. One day, a new teacher's wallet went missing, and Jessa panicked. She remembered the fear, that sick terror of being blamed, of her parents finding out, of losing approval. So when the teacher asked, "Did anyone see anything?" she pointed at Tamrin. Didn't even think, didn't even blink, just lied. Tamrin was dragged out of class, crying, never came back, no goodbye, no second chance. Jessa never saw her again. Until now. She stepped into the candlelit classroom. It wasn't a classroom anymore. It was a courtroom. The student desks were lined like benches. Paper dolls sat in every seat, all facing the front. Where? A judge's bench had been built from old books and broken chalkboards. A tall figure stood behind it, wearing a teacher's robe, eyes covered in gauze, fingertips dripping black ink. Behind them on the wall were the words, Lesson 5, Justification. The figure spoke in a voice that echoed from nowhere and everywhere. "State your name for the court." Jessa's throat tightened. Jessa Lowell. Charges. Cowardice. Deception. Sacrifice of the innocent for personal gain. The paper dolls nodded. Their heads made a rustling sound. She turned to leave, but the door was gone. Just a black wall behind her. "Please," she whispered. "I was a child." The judge leaned forward. So was she. The lights flickered, and from the side of the room, Tamrin appeared, still 7 years old, still wearing the same pink overalls, but her skin was pale, blue under the eyes, hair soaked, dirt under her fingernails. She walked to the center of the room, dragging a small backpack behind her. It leaked water. She said nothing, just stared at Jessa. Tears rolled down Jessa's cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for them to, but they did," Tamrin said softly. The judge opened a massive book and began to read. Statement from the victim, Tamrin Elway. She was supposed to be my best friend. I thought maybe if I drew her something. She'd talk to me again, but the teachers wouldn't let me back. They told my mom I stole. My mom believed them. She hit me for lying. Then she sent me away. Tamrin looked up. The place they sent me, it wasn't a school. She held up her arms. Bruises, burns, rope marks. Jessa stumbled backward. No, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. The judge banged the desk. Ignorance is not innocence. Suddenly the room began to change. The paper dolls twisted. Their paper faces melted into real ones, all of them girls Jessa had wronged, dismissed or betrayed in small ways over the years. A girl she mocked in drama class. One she spread rumors about in 9th grade. One she left crying on a bathroom floor and never checked on again. They surrounded her, and they spoke in one voice, overlapping. You made it through. We didn't. You forgot us. We remembered. The floor opened. Beneath her, she fell again. This time she landed in water, a flooded classroom, chairs floating, desks tipped over. A blackboard submerged halfway. She fought her way up, gasping for breath. Above the waterline, someone stood. Tamrin, now older. Jessa's age, hair longer, but her eyes were exactly the same. You never told the truth, she said. I didn't. No, how? Jessa cried. It's too late now. Then she reached down and grabbed Jessa's wrist, not to save her, but to pull her under. The water rushed in. Jessa choked, struggled. Everything went black. Then, beep, beep, beep. She sat up, in her bed, screaming, drenched in sweat. The room was cold. Her phone was vibrating beside her. Another message. From unknown, final exam, tonight. Come to the old gym. Attached was a photo of herself, standing at the edge of the flooded classroom, eyes completely black. Jessa threw the phone across. The room, it shattered, but the message was burned into her brain. The final lesson. Lesson 6, graduation. She knew what it meant. Whatever this was, hallucination, haunting, curse, it was coming to an end tonight, and there was no way out. Graduation. Jessa stood at the edge of the old gym, staring at the broken glass doors. It was midnight. The same dream had replayed in her head every time she blinked since last night. The flooded classroom, the whispering dolls, Tamrin's drowned face staring up at her from the dark water. She hadn't slept. This was it. The final message said so. Final exam. Tonight, come to the old gym. Lesson 6. Graduation. Inside, something waited. She gripped the flashlight in one hand, her dead phone in the other. The air was heavy, like walking into a thick fog. No turning back now. The gym hadn't been used in years. The floor was warped, the ceiling sagging. Mold crept across the bleachers like veins. Banners from forgotten sports teams still hung, faded and half-torn. But in the center of the gym stood a stage. A real stage. Draped in red curtains, spotlit, with flickering overhead lights that shouldn't have worked. Rows of old student desks had been arranged in front of it, each one occupied by figures wearing school uniforms. Heads bowed, not students, not people, mannequins. Burned, cracked and soaked in something thick and black. A podium stood in the middle of the stage, and behind it a figure in a teacher's gown. Waiting. Jessa took a shaky breath and walked forward. As she passed the desks, she caught their names, carved deep into the wood, names she recognized, names she'd forgotten. A girl who'd dropped out sophomore year after being bullied. A boy who stopped showing up after one rumor ruined him. A teacher who went missing after being falsely accused. They were all here, watching her, judging her. When she reached the stage, the teacher at the podium looked up. Their face was shifting. And 1,000 different teachers, principals, guidance counselors, all melting into one. You've made it, the voice boomed. Your final lesson, accountability. The teacher raised a cracked ruler. Jessa Lowell, you were given 6 lessons. 6 chances to face your past, your choices, and your consequences. Behind her the mannequin stood, one by one. Slowly. You were not innocent, the teacher continued, but still, you were given the chance to pass. Jessa's voice cracked. Pass what? What even is this? The teacher slammed the ruler down. This is the truth. And you've been hiding from it your whole life? Jessa shook her head. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just a kid. Kids make mistakes, and some mistakes kill, the teacher said quietly. The gym lights flared. For a second, everything turned red, and the mannequins began to move, slowly, deliberately. They walked toward her, glass eyes fixed, fingers twitching like they were remembering how to feel. One stepped forward. Tamrin. No longer the water-soaked ghost. She looked alive, wounded but real. I didn't want this for you, she said, but you never made it right. I didn't know how, Jessa whispered. You never tried. The mannequins closed in, whispering, chanting, liar, coward, cheater, fake. Jessa dropped to her knees. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. The voices rose. We all got hurt. Suddenly, a trap door opened beneath her feet. She didn't fall this time. She floated, through darkness, through memories, every moment she tried to. Forget played around her like broken film reels. Tamrin crying in the hallway, dragged by the arm. The rumor she spread in high school that led a girl to transfer schools. The teacher she humiliated with a lie just to impress someone else. Her own. Mother crying on the kitchen floor after Jessa denied ever stealing the money. Each scene ended the same way. Her walking away. Them left behind. She landed in a classroom again, but this time she was the teacher, and the desks were filled with every person she'd hurt. Tamrin, that boy from chemistry, her old teacher, her mother. They stared at her with hollow, waiting eyes. A chalkboard behind her lit up on its own. Words appeared, one at a time. Write the truth. Her hands shook. A piece of chalk rolled into her palm. I lied, she whispered and began writing. I lied to avoid trouble. I let others take the blame. I didn't care who got hurt. I only cared about myself. Tears blurred her vision, but she kept going. The chalk shattered. Her hands bled, but the more she wrote, the quieter the room became, until only one line remained on the board. I was the reason she died. When she turned around, the classroom was empty, except for Tamrin, still 7 years old. She looked up and smiled, not with hate, not with malice, just sadness. You remembered. Jessa fell to her knees. I'm so sorry. Tamrin nodded slowly. Now you know. And then she faded, like chalk washed off a board. Jessa gasped and opened her eyes. She was back, in her own bed. Sunlight poured through the window. Birds chirped. Her room looked normal. No blood, no mannequins, no ghosts. She sat up, looked at her hands, still shaking, still stained faintly with dust. She checked her phone. No messages, no unknown, just one thing. A photo in her gallery. Tamrin, smiling, Jessa beside her. First grade, before it all. The caption read, Lesson complete. Jessa got up, walked to her mirror. Her reflection stared back, older, tired, changed. Something inside her felt lighter, but the room still felt cold. And behind her, on the chalkboard wall she used for to-do lists, someone had written in perfect, slanted handwriting, "Some lessons never leave you. Class dismissed, the end."